Okay, welcome back to DTR's YouTube channel. I always like to start off by saying thanks to all the new subscribers and as well as all the current subscribers that have been following along with all the videos. I really do appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and let's get on with the next video. All right, if you've been following along with the most current videos, I've been doing a bunch of metal repairs on our 68 Olds 442. I was able to get replacement panels for the majority of those repairs to complete those parts of the project. Now we're to the point where I don't have access to replacement panels and we have to make panels. We're going to be making the door bottoms for these two doors, and as I've said in the latest video or last video, in my experience GM doors always rot on these corners. This is a very common problem. So this is something you want to be relatively good at repairing if you do a lot of restorations on GM doors. So with that being said, we're going to start with some of the basic steps of making this patch panel. And best way to start by making a patch panel is by making a template. I have my template here, which I use the cardstock from these cheap folders you can buy at any dollar store or office supply or whatever the case. It's a nice rigid paper, but yet flexible enough that makes for a nice template. As you can see, I already have made my template to fit the area that we're going to be repairing, which then, based on the shape and what these cuts all mean, that translated into a nice corner patch panel. That fits nice on the corner of our door. So I have a template made. I have this piece made. Now I can use this same template, cut another piece of metal to this shape, and use the same bends, lay this template on my other door, and just fold the tabs the other direction to then double check to see if it'll fit on this door. So that's the nice part of doing mirror image pieces. You can use one template to do both sides, but for this video I am going to also demonstrate how to make this template and then explain why all these cuts are what they are and what they mean, and how you translate that into making the piece out of metal. So next thing we're going to do is make our template. Okay, what we're going to start with is making some guidelines on the door so that when we're making a template, the template is always going to go back to those same guidelines, and you'll understand what I'm talking about in a second. So we got a rotted area right here. Let's make a straight line. This is pretty solid metal right here, so let's make a straight line here. And now let's go around the corner. Again, it's good to have, like I have these old plastic 6-inch rulers come in handy for this kind of thing because they flex right around the corner. So let's do 4.5 inches and make another what looks to be about square line. Okay, so we got 4.5 inches we're going to need for that length, and then we're going to go 1/2 inch this way, whatever this distance is, and then maybe another 3/4 inch this way because we do have some holes here. So we'll transfer that onto with our paper here, which I've already done previously. So I'll use, let's see here, how much do we got? We got 5 inches there, and how much do we need? We need 2 inches up, so this is plenty. We'll just lop the rest of this piece off here. The other thing I recommend is to always use a pencil rather than a magic marker, or use a metal scribe as I've demonstrated with other things. Using a Sharpie gives you an inconsistent, too thick of an actual line. You want to have a nice sharp line like this. But the other thing about Sharpies is especially on bare metal, with a Sharpie you're introducing oil from the marker to the metal, and even if you think you clean it off, it is possible that after something's painted, those oils can come out and bleed through your paint. It's not worth the risk, so I suggest a scribe or a pencil for this sort of thing. So we have our piece, and longer than it should be. So let's take another little bit off of it. Okay. All right, so now we have this right here. So the next thing we want to do is make this profile. So a nice trick to do that is to just put your piece on here. Again, try and keep it as square as possible to your guidelines. Then lay your, oops, not down far enough. Lay your flexible ruler against it. Transfer the mark. And again, now here's where my guideline comes in. I keep putting my template back at the same spot. If I didn't have this line here, you could have a tendency to, dance around and keep trying to trim this to perfection. But if you keep putting it at a different spot, it just makes the job harder. So just make a line and always line it up back with that original guideline. So here I'm pretty close. Now I'm gonna come back around and use the piece and try and get it a little bit better. But looking at that, I am pretty close. So let's put it back here, wrap it around, and that's pretty good. That's pretty tight. I hope this is coming out okay on the camera. All right, so now that's nice and tight. So now what we need to do is we need to make our 1/2 inch bend for this on the template. A good tool. What you could do, well, you could do it a couple ways. Let's start with, you could take this and you could mark a 1/2 inch every so often and make a line connecting the dots. Everybody knows how to connect the dots. Or you could use a tool like this. Get about what your distance is going to be, and then take it, do it over here. Take it and scrape a line right into the cardboard. You may not be seeing this, but that line is there now. So here again, this is a curved bend, so you can't just bend it over the side of a ledge or something like that. You could take any tool, but if you're trying to be very, actually, you know what, now that I have the line there, I can see it. I will mark it with a pencil so everybody can see. There's my line. Now I'll just take my pliers here and I'll just start bending this to try and get it nice and crisp. Now, once you put a bend in something, now it doesn't curve anymore. It becomes very rigid. Again, which is, you know, I like making these types of pieces with all the bends in the piece, because I just think it's nicer. It makes a nice rigid piece. Plus, I don't like when I see just a patch made and it's welded in, and a little patch weld or patch made and it's welded in, like a big Frankenstein looking piece. And I like a nice, like I said, a nice piece like this with both its bends on it. Just looks nicer to me. But anyway, we're back to here. Now when you do the metal shaping works kind of the same way. This is going to work. We push this against our door. Hope everybody can see this. And where you see the cardboard now no longer touching the metal is where you want to make your mark to make a relief cut. Now, some of you might be looking at this and saying this is very rudimentary and very basic, and yes, it absolutely is. But I just want to be thorough and explain to those who may not know or may not know these tricks. But this is going to transfer to your metal shaping equipment on making the actual metal piece. Because if this is where the bend begins in the cardboard, this is basically where the bend can begin on the metal. They're going to bend the same way. So you want to keep going around. And in this case, we have a pretty consistent curve, so I'm just going to go ahead and about every ½ inch cut a relief cut in this. So now we are wrapped around. We are at our guideline. Nice and flush down here, tight against. Now we want to go ahead and mark it on the inside to where our bend's going to be. So when I look at this, I want to make this, instead of being inconsistent here, I want to make this a little more consistent. So whatever this is, let's make it 3/4. 3/4 should be more than enough. So this is where I'll do it this way. 3/4, 3/4, 1/4, 3/4, 3/4, and then we'll it's a nice drunk line, but you get the idea. Okay, now here we are again. I gotta fold this over. I can do it the same way. Fold it in, fold it in. Now we're rigid again. So we have to basically transfer these cuts to this side. But again, based on what I showed you, you want to put the piece, and you can just transfer your marks by eye or measure them. Now we put this on, fold these around, line it up, our guide, and there is our template. All right, so now flatten this template out, and we will find a piece of metal. Here, I'll just use this piece, this end, and I'm going to cut that out of metal. All right, let's take a look at our piece. First thing we want to make sure of is that our piece and our template match. Whoops. Yeah, we are pretty good. All right. So first thing we want to do here is put our first mark in it, transfer this mark, and again lay the template on the metal the same way every time. Whether you're putting the template on this side of the piece or on the back side of the piece, you're going to transfer marks exactly the same way. There's our first mark. Now to do our other bend, that's going to go the other direction, we have to flip the piece over. Put it in the same spot. Out and transfer this mark. Okay. So now, because this is a curved bend, we can't use this in a standard brake. That's where our tipping wheel comes into play. I can roll this through the bead roller with the tipping wheel and just put pressure on the panel to make this little bend. It's going to take a few passes. Here again, this is where the pencil line gives you a more defined line than, let's say, a Sharpie. You can find an edge on the tipping wheel, match it with the pencil line. It's very deliberate. Now I'm going to stop here. I'm going to try and put some stretches, because now we have this, but we need to do the stretches which are these. You know, this is open, so this is stretched. So we have to stretch this. So fortunately, I have a dedicated stretcher here and a shrinker here. You can buy one of these, this style or the smaller Lancaster style, interchange the dies, but if you're doing jobs like this where you have to do both directions at the same time, it's nice to have one of each. I didn't always have one of each, but fortunately enough I do now. So we can go back here. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And you want to do it the same way with the metal. Is put the metal, line it up with your guideline, look down and see where your metal no longer is hitting the door, and that's where you can make a mark in it and then make your first stretch. Right there you can see, maybe, that it already started to bend. And now we can go, again, with those little 1/2-inch increments, put marks on this. And basically those marks, you want to line those marks with the center line of where your dies are. So do that in such a way that you can see, and again, just do a little at a time, because if you go too far, you can always go back, but better to just take your time. And as you can see, the piece is already starting to curve. Okay? But yeah, we're not tight enough here. We need to come back and make this a little bit more crisp here. So let's run this back through here. Basically, we want this to be pretty much up against the wheel to get that nice 90. Yeah, that's a little bit better there. Okay, so there's that. And we need to, from this bend down here, right about here and out, we need to start stretching this area more. So we can just, again, I'm not pushing with a lot of pressure. If you go too much, too fast, you end up with a weird kink in it, or it'll crack the metal. Again, you can weld it, not the end of the world, but no need to go nuts. Okay, getting there. All right, now we're almost home, so we got to concentrate just in this end here. A little bit more. Okay. No, I want to do a little bit more. This is kind of the way it is. There's no exact science to this. Now, I have done in the past where you can make a template to lay against this with the curve in it, and as you're doing it at your machine, you can always go back and lay your template against your piece to compare, so you don't have to keep walking back to your part. So, okay, there we are. I think as close as we're going to get. Now this is going to probably require a little bit of hammering just to get this to lay down a little bit better. Find my hammer. Put this down. Better. As long as we're starting at the same corner all the time, at the same mark all the time, everything else should fall into play. Now we got to get this to roll over. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pre-shrink what I can a little bit. Because it's curved, now it's not going to want to fit in the machine, but when I go to tip it, that should help. Being that this is a complex piece, so this isn't. Here we go. Lost my line. Go at it again. Kind of hard to see with the shadow. Yep, I keep missing. There we go. Put it in like this. Okay. Yeah, it looks pretty wonky there, doesn't it? Well, it's because it is. That's because this is fighting with this. So we're going to All right, now we're even closer. All right. But this is where our hammering comes into play a little bit. And try and tip this down a little more. Like I said, it does, making all these directions at the same time, the piece looks kind of all wonky and out of shape, but when the shrinks and the tips and the stretches and everything kind of meet each other in the middle, that's where it all turns out fine. Okay. Okay, now we need more shrinks. Making sure my camera was on. Basically it's hard to translate, but you want this line and this line to be the same to get that consistent curve. Otherwise it has the tendency to lay out on the ends. All right. So with a little bit of we're very close. We are very close, but I think I still need to shrink this because this is tight, but this isn't. So I think I need to pull this top over more. Let's try and do that. Like that. Now, see how consistent it is? It's tight down there, parallel against there. Same with over here. It's nice and right against our door. Again, this being such a small piece and having so many things like this going on, it does make it very difficult. It can be very difficult, and as I've said before, I've done these in the past. I've done them many different ways. This system right here seems to work the best. So obviously, I mean, this is over the top. Thought I heard a mouse. This is over the top of the door. Obviously, this got to come off to get this fit. And then once we do that, I can get the outside trimmed and so on. Now, from the shrinking, you have all this, you know, it's the metal pulled together. It's shrunk, it's pulled together. You could take this and put it on a vise, like a hard surface, hammer and dolly, what have you, and planish this. You could use a planishing hammer to go over this and smooth it more. I recommend, if you're going to do that, to over shrink a little bit more, because when you planish, the planish actually stretches the metal out a little bit more. So if you try and smooth this just the way it is, this piece may tend to open up a little bit. It's just a little, you know, again, this isn't a cosmetic, beautifully cosmetic piece, so this isn't too crucial, but that's one thing you can do to get rid of these shrink marks. I mean, even if you have a piece that you shrunk or stretched and you have these jaw marks in it, you can always go back with a planishing hammer and smooth those out, and most of them you can get rid of, so they're not as noticeable. So that one's done. That one was already done. That was my practice piece for this demonstration. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the old metal on each piece and get these fit up. All right. All right, after about half hour on each corner, cutting out the rotted part of the door. I got these guys fit pretty good. Again, these are complex pieces, but no, they fit. They'll fit up really nice. Because you got to remember, this line here is where the weather strip of the door goes, so it's crucial to get that good, because if it's either direction, in or out, it could screw up the way the door works and closes and seals and so on. So, but we're good as far as that goes. So there are some spots where the door and the replacement piece aren't married, like laying next to each other exactly perfect. So what you want to do is you want to lay the piece on it and find, like, I got a good corner right here and a good corner right here. So what I'll start by doing is tack welding the areas that are naturally laying where they're supposed to be. I'll tack weld those first. And then I'll just, you know, lightly manipulate the piece with the hammer to get everything to like roll together and get closer and closer to one another. But you want to hit the spots, like this whole front line right here from this corner down to here. This is really nice and flush. So I'll get a bunch of welds in there to get that in place. And then when I come down to here, I kind of lose it a little bit. So I can just work this 1/2 inch ledge right here. I can just work that down and I'll end up marrying up to my door and it'll work out just fine. And this one that I just made is the same way. I got a nice marry up on this whole back edge right here. I know you can't really see it that well, but it's really nice there. It's really nice here. It's really nice up in this corner, but then across the top here, because again, because the way this, you have to make this piece, I'll have to just work this lip down a little bit to get it into the door. But they're all ready to go, so I'm going to start welding and get these things on. Okay, that'll do it for this video. If you enjoyed what you saw or you learned something, give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment to get notified for any other videos coming in the future. You can always hit the subscribe button. So, once again, thanks for watching and see you next time.